अवज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, second Canto, first chapter, beginning from text number 35. Sri Sukadeva Goswami is continuing to explain the process of fixing the mind on the universal form of the Lord, which purifies the mind of its impurities. And impurities of the mind are basically this attachment to matter, and by attachment the duality arises, and then we become bound by hatred and liking. These two principles. These are the first manifestations, raga and dves, when we become attached to the body. Because whenever we look around our things, we are not neutral. We have some feelings of like or dislike, and this all cause attachment, positively or negatively, and then we remain bound to this. So unless we rise above that, and that is only possible if we try to understand that it is all manifestation of the Lord. Whatever we see, it's all His form. And this is what was being described here, how we have to see the gross forms and the variety and qualities manifest in us. So now he continues to say that Vijnana Shaktim Mahimamananti Sarvatmanuvantah Karnam Giritram Ashvashvataryoshtra Gajanakhani Sarve Mrigaha Pashvah Shonideshe Vayansi Tadvyakarnam Vichitram Manurmanisha Manujo Nivashaha Gandharva Vidyadhara Charanapsaraha Swara Smritira Sonakaviryaha Brahmananam Chatra Bhujo Mahatma Vidurum Grihshrita Krishna Varnaha Nana Vidhabhi Jaganopapanno Dravyatmakaha Karma Vitana Yogaha. So he has earlier described the various planetary systems as the physical form of the Lord. Then he talked about his senses, how the various deities and the qualities of the material elements such as taste, form, etc. represent his senses. And then he talked about the qualities such as lust, etc. Now he says Vijnana Shaktim Mahi Amananti Sarvatmano Antah Karnam Giritram. That the Mahat-tattva, in the previous verse he talked about Avyakta, or the unmanifest material nature. That was known as his heart, Hridayam. And then next element from Avyakta is Mahat-tattva. That represents the Chitta, Vijnana Shakti, the power by which one understands. Mahim Amananti Sarvatmanaho Antah Karanam Giritram. And Lord Shiva, he represents the ego. So this feeling of I, because we have the body and then there is consciousness about that we are individual beings. So up to the Mahat Tattva level, everything remains as one. When we have material nature, this Prakriti or Avyakta, then Mahatattva, then there is Ahankar. So it is Ahankar which gives us the feeling of separateness, this feeling of individuality, that we are all individual, independent or distinct beings from everything else. If we don't have this, or if we can transcend this, then there is feeling of oneness. Therefore, in personal realization they have to transcend this. They talk a lot about giving up the ego. And after that, they may remain stuck in this Mahatattva or in the Avyakta, unmanifest material nature. It will be very difficult to figure out whether they have really gone beyond it. They may think that they have now realized Brahman, because it will give that feeling of being one with Brahman, because that distinctive feeling is lost in the loss of Ahankar. So it's something like when you are approaching some, say, light bulb. So as you are going close, then the more close you go, your vision will become blurred. So it is not that only when you are completely inside, then you feel that you are in and you are one with it. But even when you are very close in the proximity, you will feel like that. So it is not that only when one becomes Brahman realized that one feels that there is only oneness, rather there is no feeling. Cannot describe it, it is anirvachaniya. But even before that, when one approaches the Mahatattva or Prakriti, then this feeling will be there. But it is not completely dissolved yet, because still there is Chitta which has the consciousness, and there will be Chitta Vritti. So there will be some enjoyment, although it will be not possible to express it. So these are the feelings which are something like one has in the deep sleep. So Lord Shiva represents ego, and that brings the distinction or the discrete feeling of I-ness or our individual existence. Then we can express things. Then he says that the horse and mule and camel and elephant, these four, they represent the nails of the universal form of the Lord. So I don't know what is so special about them, but these four have been listed as the nakha or the nails. And sarve mrigaha pasvaha shoni desi. And all the deers and other animals, they exist in this part of the Lord, the loins. Interesting thing is that for these animals, he has not said that they represent it. For everything else, he said that they are that, like this elephant, horse, and mule, and camel. They are the nails. But for this, he says that they exist there. He used the seventh case, or maybe seventh case also means here same as the first case in the previous verses, that they are loins. And then he says, Vayansi tad vyakaranam vichitram. The birds, they are Lord's art. Because you see that birds are very wonderful in their appearance, right? Green, and some are red and blue and different mixture of colors. So this is like the Lord's painting, Vyakaranam Vichitram. So his art, manifestation of his art. Manur Manisha, and Manu, which means the Swambhu Manu, the first one, he represents Lord's intelligence, because it is Manu who arranged how the human beings should conduct themselves in the society so that they can proceed towards the ultimate goal of life. It's a very difficult job to arrange for people so that they can fulfill their material desires and also ultimately attain the final goal of life. It's a very difficult job. How? Because there is so much variety in human beings. You cannot just have one thing for the whole society, and everybody has to just perform one activity. Because we all have different nature, different likings, different karma. So how to engage them so that they can also exist in the society and the society can also function. There are other prescriptions of people that give everything and join a society, but that will be not in the favor of Lord Brahma, who said that creation has to continue. So how that it has to continue, and for continuing best thing is that put people in ignorance and let them be materially conditioned, then you don't have to do anything, they will continue anyway, unless of course they discover nuclear bombs and destroy everything. Otherwise there is no problem. So his business was that pravritti resa bhutanam nivrittistu mahaphala. Manu, he says in Manu Smriti that the natural liking of people is pravritti, that they are naturally inclined materially to have material possessions, material desires, and try to fulfill them. And for that they will continue the creation. But he says that nivritti is to mahaphala, the great result is nivritti, to become free from this. So he made a program which encompasses both of these, both features. So that is his intelligence. And Manujo Nivasa. Where does this Lord live, this big universal form? What is his house? So he says that he lives in human beings. So this complete universe is inside every human being. Of all the forms of the Lord, the human form is most wonderful because this is the abode of the Lord. So therefore it is called Hari Mandiram. That's why we put tilak on this body to signify that this is the temple. Temple means the house of God. So human body is therefore very precious, very important, because it is the house of God. It is his abode, nivas, residence. Gandharva Vidyadhar Charana Apsara Swara Smriti Asuranika Virya. And Gandharvas, they are very good at singing. You have Gandharva Rag. And Vidyadharas, they are learned, and Charanas, they can recite the Vedas, the slokas. They are called, and Apsaras, they are also good at dancing, are called Swara and Smriti. These are the melodies of the Lord. Lord also knows some melodies, and these are the manifestation of his melodies, and Smriti, his memory. Because these people, they remember all these ragas, very difficult to learn even one rag and learn the notes and not make any mistakes in that. So there are many, many ragas which we may not know on earth. There must be many more with these people. So they remember all this. And Asuranika Virya. The Asuras, they are the power of the universal power. They represent power. So Asuras are very powerful. The Suras, they are weak in comparison to Asuras. Therefore they always take help from the Lord. But Asuras, they eat nicely, they exercise, and they fight. So this represents the power of the Lord. Then Brahmananam Kshatra Bhujo Mahatma, the face or the mouth, the Brahmanas represent the mouth of the Lord. So that's why in India there was a tradition of feeding the Brahmanas. Any occasion, then Brahmanas have to be first fed, because they are the mouth of the Lord. If you want to feed, then you give to a Brahman, and means Lord has eaten. And Kshatra Bhujo, Kshatriyas, they are the arms of the Lord. And Vidur Uru, the Vaishyas, they are the Urus, the thighs, and a Shrit Krishna Varna Angri, the feet, they are represented by the Sudras, who are dark complexioned, Shrit Krishna Varna. Nana Vidha Bhijya Ganopapanno Dravyatmakaha Karma Vitani. And the sacrifice, in which various types of materials are put as an oblation for the purpose of various worshipable deities who have various names. Nana Vidha, Abhijya, there are various names: Indra, Varuna, Chandra, Surya, Ganesh, and so on. So this represents Lord's activity. Karma means his activity is the activity of sacrifice. Yagyarthat karmano nitra lokoyam karma bandha. Krishna says that the karma should be for the sake of yajna, otherwise it becomes a bondage. So whatever we do, then we should do it as a yajna, an act of sacrifice, or an act of worship of the Lord. Then we don't become bound by our actions. Otherwise it is very unfortunate that people perform activity and they become bound. They are binding themselves. It's like making a cocoon outside and you are inside, and you yourself are making it. Then you are caught inside it. So Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Vigyan Shaktim Chittam. The word Vigyan Shakti represents Chitta, or the heart. Mahim Mahat Tattvam. And Mahim represents the Mahat Tattva, the intelligent factor. Chitta is the knowledge factor. Antahakaranam Ahankaram. And Antakaran here means the ego, and that is represented by Rudra, Giritram Rudram. He lives on a mountain, Kailas, therefore he is called Giritra. Then Gardhavat Vadavayam Utpanna Ashvatari. Ashva means horse, and Ashvatari means mule, because mule is a product of horse and an ass. Their combination gives mule. वयांसी पक्षिण है तस्य व्याकरणम नाम रूपे व्याकरवाणी इति श्रुतियुक्तम शिल्प नैपुण्यम. The birds, they are the expertise, the expert craftsmanship of the Lord. How He has produced them so wonderfully. Such various types of birds and their feathers, how the feathers come nicely, different colors, like you see the peacock feather, so nice. So how they are coming from the body, somebody must have designed them. We say that there is a DNA and there is a program in that, but somebody must have designed this DNA to function like that. So that is his Shilpa Naipunya. यथाहु येन शुक्ली कृता हंसः शुकाश्च हरिति कृतः मयूराश्चित्रिता येन सते वृत्तिं विदास्यति. There is a famous verse which talks about this. He says, of course the verse is quoted in a different context here because the original verse is signifying something else. The verse says that a person who has made the swans white and who has made the parrots green and who has made peacocks with various colors, that person will supply you vritti or job or food. Don't worry. If he can do such things, he can also give you some work. So it should not be an anxiety. Manuhu Swayambhuva. Manu means Swayambhu Manu, who is the first Manu of the 14 Manus. Manisha Vicharvati Buddhi. And Manisha means the discriminatory intelligence by which we take decisions. Manujaha Purushaha Purushatve Cha Avistarma Atma iti Shrute. And Manuja means the person, human beings. They are the residents. Gandharvadinam Dvandvakyam. Gandharvadya Swara Shadjadi. The Gandharvas, etc., they are the Swaras, these 7 notes, Sare Gama Padani. And Asurani Variha Prahlada Smriti. He gives a different reading. Here for him the Smriti comes in a different place. The reading is Gandharva Vidyadhara Charana Apsaraswara Asuranika Virya Smriti. So he said that the memory is the best of the demons. Instead of Virya he says Varya, a different reading. The best of the demons, he is the Smriti, and that is Prahlad. Because the basic wonderful characteristic of Prahlad is that he always remembers the Lord. Under all circumstances, he did not forget him. And right from when he was in the womb, he remembered the Lord. So therefore he is representative of Lord's remembrance, smriti or memory. Swara smriti asuranika virya iti pathe swaranam smritayah asuranika virya yasyasa. And then he also says that if the reading is as I read it, then it means that the Gandharvas and Vidyadhara, Charana and Apsara, they represent the memory of the Swaras, because they remember all the musical melodies. And Asuranikam Viryam Yasyasa. And the Asuras, they represent the power of love. And there are two more verses remaining in this chapter. And read them. यानसौ ईश्वरविग्रहस्य सन्निवेशः कथितो मया ते सन्धार्यतेऽस्मिन् वपुषि स्तविष्टे मनः स्वबुद्ध्या नयितोऽस्ति किञ्चित् स सर्वधीवृत्यनुभूतसर्व आत्मा यथा स्वप्नजनेक्षितैकः तं सत्यमानन्दनिधिं भजेत नान्यत् सृज्येयदात्मपातः. He says this, which I have explained with different arrangement, is the form of the Lord, and I have described this to you. One should fix one's mind on this grossest form of the Lord with the help of one's intelligence, because there is nothing besides this. So because this universal form has included everything, nothing has been left, and this is the meaning of holistic approach. Everything has been taken into consideration, whether it is the gross visible forms or the subtle elements or the qualities. Because basically there is dravya, guna, kriya, three things. There are material elements, and there are qualities of those elements, and there are activities. If you see all objects around you, then basically they fall in these three categories. And there are some other things which are imagined for explanation, but really speaking, these are the only three things which exist: objects, qualities, and activities. Yes. So these three things, this is what we experience in this world. They all are part of the Lord's universal body, and there is nothing outside it. So now nobody can complain that if I go to this place or this country or this destination, then how will I remember God? Because wherever you go, you are not going to find anything more than this. Whether they are birds or beasts or flowers or trees or rivers or plants, and human beings and their intelligence, all the deities, different temples. If you are in India, and Lord Shiva's temple, very famous. So all you will see people who are scholarly or managerial type, businessman, workman, or you may see some sacrificial activities. So all have been described here as following the Lord. So therefore he says, yato asti na kinchit. And besides this there is nothing else. And then he says, he concludes, and his conclusion is always in pure devotion. And it says, sa sarvadhi vritti anubhuta sarva atma yatha swapna janekshitaikah tam satyam ananda nidhim bhajeta nanyatra yasajjeta yad atma. That a person who has experienced all this, the different things in this life, in the past lives, and after experiencing, he knows that all these things, they are temporary, like the objects in the dream. So we have experienced many things in our various births, and all this experience is just like the experience of the dream, which also we ourselves experience. So after understanding that all these experiences, they are temporary and they don't give us anything permanent, then one should only worship the Lord who has two characteristics, Satyam Ananda Nidhi, that He is eternal, He is real, He is not illusion, and He is the storehouse of Ananda, happiness. So what we have to worship, that object must be real and it must be blissful. Otherwise, there is no point in worshipping. So he says that one should only worship that who is the storehouse of bliss and who is absolute truth, means it is eternal, it is not a temporary object. So object of worship cannot be something material or temporary which undergoes transformation. It has to be Satya, which remains the way it is in all three states of our existence, past, present or future, or wakeful state, dream state or deep sleep. This does not change. And he is Anandanidhi. He is full of bliss. These two things have to be understood. And Nanyatra Sajjayati Yat Atmapada. One should not become attached to anything else. So, how can one become attached to anything else? Because there is nothing else which exists. We already said in a previous verse that yato nasti kinchit, that there is nothing else besides this universal form. There is nothing. And now it says one should not become attached to anything else. How can you become attached to anything else? Because there is nothing besides it. So this is interesting that there is nothing besides the Lord, and yet we can become attached to something which is not the Lord. And what is the outcome if you become attached to something other than the Lord? He says then there is Atmapata. Then there is fall down or degradation of one's consciousness. It will only lead to degradation, no matter what you do. If one does not worship Satya Ananda Nidhi, the absolute truth which is blissful, then one's consciousness will become polluted sooner or later. So one has to then worship only Him. Iti Srimad Bhagavate Mahapurane Paramahansyam Samhikayam Dvitiya Skandhe Mahapurush Santhano Varnane Prathamadhyaya. This is the end of first chapter, which describes the universal structure of the Lord's body. In the second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is called Paramahansa Samhita. So commentary by Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Brahma Brahmana Ananam. Brahma is the face, Brahmanas are the face basically. Kshatram Kshatriya Bhujayasya, the Kshatriyas are the arms. Vitvasya Uru Yasya Sa, and the thighs are the Vasyas. Angri Shrit Krishna Varno Sudro Yasya Sa, and the Sudras represent his feet. Nana Abhidha Namani Yesham Te Cha Te Abhujya Deva Abhijya Deva Tesham Ganair Vasu Rudradi Bhirutpanno Yukta Dravyatmaka Havishaadhya Vitan Yoga Yagya Prayoga Tasya Karna Avashakam Krityam. So Lord's prescribed duty which has to be done is the sacrifice, which is performed with some oblations into the fire. Therefore it is called Dravyatma, and it contains the mantras which are chanted for the various deities such as Vasu, Rudra and so on. Ya Netavan Sannivesa Avyav Sansthanam. This is the structure of the Lord's body. Everything has been explained. Asmin Vapushi Sabuddhya Sarthi Bhutyati. Mana Sandharete Yogi. The yogi, they should fix their mind on this form of the Lord with the help of the intelligence. Yato yatiriktam kinchidapi nasti tasmin. Because besides this there is nothing else. Ayam artha manohi swachanchalya vasad yatra yatra bhramati tatra tatra eva bhagavata idam amukam angamiti swabuddhya vichariyet. Evam cha manasah swabhavikah sarva eva vishya bhagavadangani eveti sarvam api chintanam bhagavad chintanattvena pariyavashyet. So he says that mind is very flickering. This nobody will disagree. You know this. If you try to concentrate it on something, then it starts running very quick. So he says what to do. So there are different techniques. One is the Vipassana technique, that you observe the thoughts and kick them out. And this technique is that your mind is going to run, no problem. It says wherever it goes, just see that, remember that that particular object, activity or quality where the mind is running, because basically these are the only three things. That is a form or part of Lord's body. It's nothing else. So therefore wherever your mind will run, it will run to the body of the Lord. It cannot run anywhere else. So then its running will become a meditation. Your thoughts will all become thoughts of God. Bhagavad Chintanam Padavashat. And then what will be the outcome of that? Say the outcome will be Tatha Spardha Avagyadayo Bhava Naiv Utpadyeram. Then these thoughts of envy and disrespect, they will not come in your mind. Because these are the problems. We are envious, we are always trying to compete with somebody, and by that trying to defeat, become victorious and then feel happy at the expense of somebody else, or you become defeated and then feel miserable. So he says this thing will not happen. Or you are committing offense by disregarding or disrespecting somebody. So this is the solution for that. Spardhadi vishyanam manushya gandharvadinam api bhagavadanga bhutatvena dhyatva. He says because whomever you envy, that person, whether he is a human being or he is a Gandharva or some other higher being, he is also part of Lord's body. So then you do not envy him. There is no rivalry. Rather this becomes the meditation. Then the next verse, see the last verse. This verse is actually quite interesting because it can be interpreted in different ways. It can also be interpreted in an impersonal manner, although that is not very fitting. Because impersonalists say sarvodhi vritti anubhuta sarva atma yatha swapna janekshite. Their interpretation is that Lord, it is He who is seeing everything and no one else is seeing. Says with all the chitta vrittis, he is experiencing everything. Just like when you dream, you experience everything. You create your own dream, and whatever is in the dream, and there may be many human beings, and even these human beings in your dream may be experiencing, because you are dreaming that somebody is happy, somebody is upset, somebody is angry. But their experience also is your experience. So it says like this, it is only one Brahman which experiences everything. And that is the only reality. And one should worship that. Tam Satyanarayana bhavet namyat sajjed yad atmapad. So what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur he gives another meaning of this verse, which is more in tune with the subject and the mood of devotion. So this is his explanation. Nanu evam bhagavad dharana abhyasasya anusangikani phalani bhogashwaryadini avashyam utpadyante eva. Yogi tani swatah praptani upabhunjita neva. First he raises a question. He says that if you perform meditation seriously, not just in a haphazard manner, then you are definitely going to get some result from that. And that result will be in the form of some enjoyment, some power, some mystic perfection will come to you. It is bound to happen. That if you practice meditation properly, then you will surely get some enjoyment and some power will come to you. So now the question comes that a yogi, should he enjoy these enjoyments and this power which has come to him by itself without his asking for it, or he should avoid enjoying it? So he says, Adya Yoga Shaithalya Prasanga. If he takes the first option, means he enjoys them, then what will happen? His yoga will become weak, because then he will become deviated from his process. Because to do yoga, practice properly, meditation, you have to give up enjoyment. This yoga and bhoga, they cannot go together. Either you can be a yogi or you can be a bhogi. Now if a yogi gets into bhoga, then his yoga is gone. As it is said, Yaduktam Yadana Yogopachitasu Cheto Maya Susiddhasya Visajyate Anga Ananya Hetu Shuathame Gati Syad Atyantiki Yatrana Mrityu Hasa. This is a verse which is spoken by Lord Kapila to his mother Devhuti when he is describing the process of yoga. So he says that when a person performs yoga, then he will get perfections, powers, enjoyments. So he should not enjoy them. Because if he will enjoy them, then he will lose the practice of yoga and ultimate gain. So therefore he says he should be ananya hetushu atme gati shadatyantiki yatrana mrityuvasi. And if he avoids them, then he will attain the ultimate destination, which is beyond the realm of death. And if he does the second one, that he gets pleasures, he gets powers, perfections, he should renounce them. What happens in that case? He says, Dvitiye upasthit bhoga tyagasya duskaratvam. Says it is very difficult to give up the pleasures which have presented themselves naturally. So if you are meditating and suddenly you start getting a very nice smell, there is nothing outside, there are no flowers, no scent, but you start getting this very nice smell, divine smell, and because it is coming from the power of meditation. And then you start enjoying that. And then you become lax in your meditation. And how to avoid it? Because it is right there. Wherever you will go, it is not that it is coming from outside and there is a flower and you can walk away from there. Then you will not get the smell, fragrance. Because fragrance does not travel so far. How will you avoid? He says it's very difficult, duskaratvam. Or some other enjoyment like that will come, some music. External objects may also appear, but at least you can do something with the externals, but If they are coming internally, then they are very difficult, because yogis, they get many powers like this. They are described in Bhagavatam and also in the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali. So then he says Satyam Vivekenaiva Sarvam Sukramati Vivek Prakaram Darsati. He says this can be avoided. There is no question of enjoying it, because enjoyment will become an obstacle. So one has to use one's discrimination, because only by discrimination one can avoid. So Vivek is the Sanskrit word for discrimination, and Vivek is like the brake. And you have to put a brake to this enjoyment, you have to avoid them. And the verse is giving a process how to do it. So then it says, Sa sarvadhi vritti anubhuta sarva. Sa yogi sarv abhidhyam vritti bhir indriya lakshana bhi prachin sahasra janma varti nidhir anubhutam eva sarva. It says one has to use one's intelligence and understand that whatever enjoyment you are going to get as a byproduct of your meditation, that enjoyment you have already had. There is nothing in this material world which we have not had. Whether it is enjoying in heaven or any other planetary system, divine music or relation with the opposite sex, all this has been enjoyed thousands and thousands of times. And it did not liberate you from the conditioning. Rather, it conditioned us more. Because the more you enjoy, more you become conditioned. Unless one comes to Vivek. Only when one comes to discrimination, then one can deliberate and think that actually this enjoyment is only depleting my energy. Like King Yayati was able to understand this. So Devendratva Narendratvadikam Bhogaswaryadikam Yena Sa Kim Punascharvit Charvanaya iti bhava. Says you have been Indra, you have also been Emperor of the world, all these posts you have already held. So don't again try to enjoy them. Says it is like chewing the chewed. You have the chewing gum and you have already chewed it so much that there is nothing remaining in it. And you throw it away. And then you pick it up again and again start chewing it. So what is the fun in that? Say Charvik Charvananam. Says no. So that is the meaning he gives. Sarvadhi vritti anubhut sarva atma yatha swapna janendriyaka. Nacha tasya api sthiratvam iti atra drishtanta. He says all these enjoyments, they are not stable. They are all very flimsy, ephemeral, temporary. Only for a short period they exist. Any enjoyment is for a very short period. And if it stays for a longer period, it is not an enjoyment anymore. Then you become bored with it. It does not give you pleasure. Then you have to invent something. So he gives an example that how it is not permanent. He says, Atma jiva yatha swapne jananam patra mitra sanyadinam tadupalakshit rajyadi bhoganam cha swasrishtanam eke vikshita anubhavita. He said, just like you may be dreaming, and in your dream you see many people, and these people, some of them are your friend, some are neutral. You may be king and they are part of your army or servants, or you are serving somebody. So like this you have enjoyed everything, whether it is kingdom or job or any other thing, traveling, going to other planets. And all this was created by you, because in the dream you create all this. So similarly the enjoyment outside we create by our karma. Create means we have performed some activity to get that, and then Lord arranges for it. Similarly, the dreams are created according to our karma with the help of the Lord. Sandhya Srishtir Ahani in the Vedanta Sutra says that it is Lord who creates the dreams. But He creates them according to what we deserve. So we are the experiencer of all those dreams. Atastam satyam sarvakal desvartinam anandanam nidhim bhagavante. Therefore one should worship the absolute reality who is satyam, who is eternal, not become involved, entangled in the temporary pleasures like the dreams. They are like the dream. So you can see all these material pleasures as dreams. They are coming and going of their own accord. You don't become attached to our dreams. When you wake up, you don't cry for what we had in a dream. So like that he says, one should avoid that and become devoted only to the Lord. Bhagavantam eva bhajeta netu anyatra asarvadikatvad anananda nidhau vishya sukhe, and not anywhere else. And because anywhere else, if you fix your mind, it will be temporary and it will be the source of misery. Instead of Ananda Nidhi, it will be Anananda Nidhi. No Ananda. So that is all this Vishya Sukha, the pleasures coming from the senses. So one should avoid that and fix the mind only on the Lord. Iti sarartha darshanyam bharshanyam bhakti chetasam dvitiya prathmodhyaya sankastam. This is the end of sarartha darshani commentary, which brings pleasure to the heart of the devotees on the first chapter of second canto. And it was written in the association of saintly people.
It's a tough job that Vyas had. At this, just looking at this, the cosmic form of the Lord, that he's got to first, in order for us to have real respect, to be free from envy, which is the platform for entering discussion in Bhagavatam. So he's got to spiritualize our consciousness, to learn to see everything as a manifestation of the Lord, but not to go to the extreme of hence equating everything with God, that he has his own distinct identity, separate from everything that we see. And that truth is the truth to be worshipped.
It's quite interesting that he wants us to meditate on this yet not get entangled in this.
Mm-hmm.
So you meditate on this and then go beyond it. And only by meditation on this you transcend it. It's a process. Usually whatever you perform, you become caught in that. It says by this you will get out of it.
And this really expresses the balance, because the two tendencies are either towards you can say extreme materialism or extreme fundamentalism. So either to deny God or the soul, or to deny all matter, or dismiss it in some form as irrelevant, and hence not see its connection with God.
That's why this is the real holistic approach. It's actually taking everything into consideration. Because all paths have this problem. You always deny something, you accept something.
It would seem that even the ego has a certain functionality.
Without ego, nothing happens.
There's a modern, like a Westerner who's taken to Buddhism and speaking about, because in Buddhism especially, they just throw out the ego altogether. So it doesn't even exist. It's just a fiction. But still, you have to, let's say, to be able to assimilate into the world, into society, the ego has to be, has to develop, and it has to be nurtured in a way. So he says, to become nobody, you first have to be somebody. You first have to fortify the ego, build it up, and then smash it.
Point is, if it is fiction, whose fiction is it? But if ego is fiction, there has to be another ego to see it as a fiction. How it has come into existence. So this is problematic at this level. It's nice before that. But to that point, I think we have no disagreement. But from this point onwards, we have no agreement.
It seems to be a kind of trick in a way, because the approach of the Buddhists seems to be that if you make this investigation, this internal investigation, then you won't find any substantial self. But is not the self the seer, let's say? The seer is not the seen. So if you're making any sort of investigation to try to discover if there is a seer, your very attempt will miss it, because it is not the seen.
Because you're making a wrong investigation.
But like this last summer, we when we were teaching Reiki, the majority of the students that came to us were all Buddhists in a way, or at least interested in Buddhism. And very, sensitive people, spiritually minded, everything. We had nice discussions, and but they were kind of struggling with this concept of no self, because they all felt there was some incompleteness in a way, not a philosophical incompleteness, but on a practical level, they were all seeking to be involved in healing, to be involved in sharing love. But if there's no self, then what is the need for these things?
Heal whom? Love for what?
So it has a certain intellectual appeal, but on a practical level, it still leaves one feeling empty, and they still seek to fill that void with. They're still seeking devotion in a way.
Therefore, also comes up with a solution. He says that love is not for somebody. Love is just a characteristic. It is not that you have to love somebody, but when you have love, it just overflows everything around you. And then these are the type of explanation they are forced to give.
But it seems relevant up to the point of deconstructing the material ego.
Yeah, up to that point it is, as I said, it's very nice. And beyond that, it becomes problematic. Deconstructing the material world is very good. They take the deconstruction too far. They start deconstructing the person who is deconstructing. That's very difficult. Sankaracharya has words like this. He says, Nahi Nat batorapi swaskandam arohitum arhati. Says that even the young gymnast cannot jump on his own shoulders. He can jump everywhere and you can do a lot of gymnastics. Just to jump on your own. So you can deconstruct everything, but you deconstruct your own self.